In association with Get a Tax Rebate, 1895 Sports, Mesa Vienna Aesthetics, CDX Security.
Okay, welcome to the Oddball Woody Show, another episode with another guy I like to call friend, really. Someone who I'm working with closely at the moment. But played against him all my career, one of the most decorated rugby league players to ever play English Super League. One of the most decorated international players as well. I don't think, I'm sure he'll tell us more about it, but there's not one trophy he's never won. So, and bring him on. I know a little bit about his backstory over the last few months. And, when you get to know people a little bit differently than you do on the field, I always think it makes for an interesting character. So, I've spoke to this guy about, telling his backstory, how it's moulded him as a player, how it moulded his things off the field and what he's up to today. So, no other than Keith Senior. Thanks for coming, Keith.
How are you doing, Woody? Good to see you, mate. The Oddball Woody Show, is that because of your oddball, or is it because you are an actual oddball now that I've come to know you a little bit better, that we are not anymore arch nemesis playing against each other? Like you say, yeah, it's been an interesting last couple of years, hasn't it? From retiring, then actually knowing each other's personal stories or life a little bit more away from the game. So we've been able to delve a little bit more into that.
Yeah, it is interesting, mate. And we have, I'm certainly guilty of this. You have preconceptions of what people are about. I mean, I'm quite fortunate in the respect that, I was involved in a couple of Great Britain camps with you. And I remember saying to you a few weeks ago that, I always felt like, I had a good friendship with you and I connected with you. You was always great with me during those camps. And, but knowing some of your backstory as well about what you've been through off the field, they're the things what a lot of people don't see, what you've had to deal with. So, for example, when people are, calling you names because you've got this certain attitude or this sort of persona, you'll say it yourself. You've had loads of stick as a player off certain fans, but ultimately they don't know what's moulded you to be that character or that persona or why you want to be seen as that. So it's interesting, Keith. But first of all, mate, just take us back to little from being. We always start where it began, really. So just tell us a little bit about when you were younger and how you got involved into rugby.
I was 9 years old. My brother played at Huddersfield Schools at a Challenge Cup final, pre-match game. And I didn't go down. My mum and dad went down to Wembley to watch him play. I think it was a Wigan Castleford or Wigan Castleford game. Not quite sure, I forget. But he played in that game, and with your big brother, he's a couple of years older than me. I just wanted to follow in his footsteps a little bit. At that time, I looked up to him a little bit, even though we fought like cat and dog. We were, as family, we were horrible. Typical brothers. He were older, and he used to always kick the crap out of me. But then he always used to get his mates to kick the crap out of me as well, which were even worse. So we had that typical sibling rivalry, but he played the game at Wembley. I watched a little bit on TV, and then listening to him coming back, and what an experience it was, how great it was and how much he enjoyed it. So I ended up getting into quite a few sports. I was always into sport, never education. I'm not when it comes to brains, I was never the smartest when it came to school. I'll openly admit that. And not because I couldn't do it, it was probably because I didn't want to do it. I didn't have any interest in it, so I got into sport, and I started at Huddersfield YMCA Rugby Union as a 9-year-old. That was the local club to me, so it just seemed to fit to go, because at the end of the day, as a 9-year-old, rugby's rugby. Doesn't matter what code it is. Getting a ball in your hand and playing in a team sport and enjoying the game at a young age, that's all that mattered. So my brother got me into it, and thankfully he did. So, like I said, I'd played a lot of sports. I played football. My dad was a goalkeeper in football, so I played a little bit of football as well, and dipped in and out of quite a few things. But typical kid, I'd play 3-4 games, 2 games of rugby, a game of football in a week without fail. So sport was huge in my upbringing.
What was it with school, Keith? What did you find? Like I was exactly the same with school. I wouldn't say I was was dumb or I was thick or anything, but I just didn't like school. I didn't have any interest in it whatsoever. I was just sport orientated. And you say that you're not the smartest guy, but you have to be smart to achieve everything that you achieved in the game. You know what I mean? It's a typical rugby player thing to say that I'm not the smartest guy, but there's people who work in IT, there's people who are doctors who couldn't think like you think on a rugby field or do what you do on a rugby field. So there is an element of smartness there, but it's just in a different capacity.
Yeah, it's quite funny that you say all that, because with the work environment that we're in now, with the offload project that we're delivering for Rugby League Cares and stuff, one of the delivers and the head of the game, there's a lot of psychology side in that and a lot of psychological stuff. And we have a lot of these debates, don't we? And how we talk to ourselves, how we put ourselves down, and how we start believing that. And I was, if I didn't enjoy it, then I couldn't do it. But then if I couldn't do it, I wouldn't really try. I'd just dismiss it. But as a child, I was allowed to do what I wanted. So my dad, he was an HCV truck driver. He used to work 90, 100 hours a week. I'd see him on a Sunday evening or a Monday morning, and then probably wouldn't see him again until a Friday night or a Saturday morning. So he was working all the hours God sends, because that was his way to provide for the family. He was a workhorse. He was the main breadwinner of the family, and he was in an era where he was all about providing. Going out to work, my mum stayed at home, and he provided for us. So I never saw him. So basically, my mother could not control me and my brother. So we did what we wanted. And if I didn't want to go to school, I didn't go to school. If I had a bad report, it didn't matter, because there were no retribution for it. So I ended up just looking after myself, being a little bit of a loner type person, not really getting, I had a group of friends and I had a team of rugby players, but I always looked after myself and I kept myself to myself. And I was that for a very, very long time. And I probably still am a little bit now, but over the last 5 to 10 years since retiring, so I could speak, you could speak to some of my ex-teammates. You've been on tour with me, and not many players actually know me as a person, because I wouldn't talk about anything. I wouldn't disclose much. I was just, I sort of like fitted into the persona that I'd built. I was now Keith Senior, the professional rugby player, because as a child, I never really had a lot of confidence in myself, and I never really had people pushing me neither, or having confidence in me. So I just got on with stuff. I just got on with everything, and I just fell into stuff. So when it came to leaving school, my dad was a truck driver, so I signed up for the army. I took my army entrance exam because I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to stay in education, so I thought, right, I'll just join the army. It just popped into my head, so I took my army entrance exam, and then my dad got me a job at his workplace as an HGV mechanic. I'm like, why don't you just come here? So it was like, okay, I'll do that as a job. It just happened. There was, I wasn't. So I listened to Kevin Sinfield's podcast the other week, and how he had his drive and ambition as a 12-year-old, and he always knew that he wanted to be a professional rugby player, and how he set his sights on it, and it was his dream. I never had that. I never had any dreams and ambition and aspirations to be anything really. And you look back on that, and it is quite sad. It is quite sad to go through that and think about that. But that was me as a person. I was a closed book. I was a closed book, and I didn't let anybody in. And I still struggle to let people in. I've opened up a lot more now. I talk a lot more now because of the capacity of the job that I'm in and the role that I'm in, and understanding a lot more. So I've learned to dig deep, look inside, and look at myself as a child and see how it's formed me as a person and as an adult.
Mate, I'm glad that you are as well, because you are a very interesting guy, you know. And again, going back to what you've achieved, I'm going back to rugby, but what you've achieved on a rugby field, mate, people could only dream about that. You know, you've won about 9 grand finals, you've won, you know, 3 Challenge Cups. You know, you've done everything. You played for your country. You've done everything within the game, World Cup challenges. So people would be so interested to understand how a person develops and gets to that stage. But first of all, I just want to ask you there, because you were saying about, you know, it was role opposite for me. I got away with everything with my dad, and my mum ruled with the iron fist. So it was role reversal for me. So I can sort of understand where you're coming from. But in terms of like a role model at that young age, who was you looking up to? Did you have any, I don't know if it was a sporting icon or whether it was a family member or anything. Was there anyone who sort of give you that motivation and could talk to you?
You know what? It'll make me sound sad, but no. I did. You know, my dad, like I said, he wasn't there, but I didn't have a bad childhood. I never want anybody to think that I had a bad childhood. I just ran the roost. It was in a society or age where it was what it was, and my dad had to work, and he worked his ass off. He absolutely worked his ass off. But I probably needed a role model. I needed a father figure to keep me in line, because I'd get told off when he came back. You know, the slipper would come out and I'd get the belt, but it wasn't anything. It was stuff that I could handle and I could get used to. So I ended up just being a little shit. I didn't have anybody to look up to. You know, my dad played football. He got us into the sporting side of things, but actually a mentor I didn't have. And that might have been the reason why I ended up turning out how I did. My mentor was my dad, or how I saw how you lived your life. So when I finished work, when I ended up getting into the working environment, I was a grafter, and I the HGV mechanic, because I were on a YTS at £29.50 a week for a 40-hour week. So I'd be working until like 3 in the morning. I would do stupid hours just to get a decent wage to earn about 100 quid a week. So we're going back a long time. So it was just how I was brought up. That's how I saw things. And as you get older, we do the psychology stuff, and you talk about your beliefs and everything, and the people that you hang about, the people that you grew up with. Because I didn't have a huge circle of friends, or I didn't connect with a huge circle of friends. I didn't have anybody that I really followed. So it sounds pretty sad, but it wasn't. If you know, I don't want to make it out that it was a terrible childhood. I just could do what the hell I wanted. So I tried stupid stuff. You know, there'd be times I'd come back, I'd go in my dad's whiskey cabinet, I'd down a bottle of whiskey at dinner time at school, and I'd go back to school pissed up. You know, who does that as a 14, 15-year-old, whatever? You know, I know some people do it, but then I still didn't have no retribution for it. I didn't get done. I didn't get told off. You know, school were pissed off as you can imagine, but I didn't get any. There were no backlash from my parents, because I'd just get the slipper and that was it, rather than probably having a guide or a mentor. So I played sport. I was good at sport, but I was probably always told that I was never good enough. So again, I just played it just for the enjoyment. And that's why I never had the dreams of being a professional rugby player. I was good at it, don't get me wrong, but I never seemed to get anywhere. I go to Yorkshire trials and I'd never seem to get anywhere. I'd get, yeah, he's good, but he's not good enough. Or I'd get my brother was 2 years older. He's not as good as his brother because my brother was a real good player. So I was categorised with him. Oh, he's good, but he's not as good as his brother. But he was 2 years older than me. So I never wanted to be a professional rugby player because, as with most things, I enjoyed it, but people tell me that I'm not good enough. So I'll just get on with what I do, and I'll just keep myself to myself, and I'll be me.
It's a bit gutting when you get told that you're not going to be good enough to do something. But from my experience, I love these chats on this podcast. But from my experience and listening to all the guests, it's quite a common theme that people have a lot of doubters. And I think subconsciously, like, we use it as a driving force. You know, I can certainly relate to that. You know, I was never big enough as a prop forward. And there's other people who've been on who said exactly the same, and they didn't make the 20 trials, and they've had that adversity, but they've had the resilience. And, you know, I'll use the word smartness to bounce back, you know, get knocked down, bounce back to achieve their goal. Did you use that as a motivation, do you think?
And that's the funny thing. No, I didn't. I just accepted it. I accepted it. It was what it was, and it was what it was going to be.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to probably be in the right place at the right time when it came to becoming a professional rugby player. So my team, Huddersfield YMCA, I'd been there since I was 9. I was 16, 17 years old. And I'd have carried on playing there for the rest of my life, and I'd have been an HGV mechanic. And that would have been me, done.
I can't see you in blue overalls, Keith.
I was quite fetching. But a proper grease monkey, horrible. Because it was Continental Wines and Food on Leeds Road. It's not far from the stadium in Huddersfield. But they also did plant machinery as well. So I was a proper grease monkey. I'd be shit from head to toe. Literally, that was my life. And I'd accepted that. And the coach at the Huddersfield YMCA, he'd had enough. He'd been doing it for years. And it was Stuart Turnbull's dad who was one of the players, and he'd had enough. So the team disbanded. Another coach, Andrew Earnshaw, his dad, and it disbanded. So it was like, well, I'm not playing rugby anymore. So one of the truck drivers said to me, oh, just come down to local amateur team, Milnesbridge, Pennine League Division 4. So the standard wasn't great. But it was just like, yeah, I'll go down. There was a prop there called Nine Bellies. So you can imagine, the standard. It weren't the greatest. He had a claim to fame. He was the Huddersfield Giants mascot. I'm not 100% sure if he still is, but he was Big G. So that was his claim to fame. So I can say that I played with the Huddersfield Giants mascot. But that was Pennine League Division 4, and if you know the amateur game, that standard wasn't that great. That coach knew somebody at Sheffield. So the coach knew somebody at Huddersfield because I was ripping it up. I was killing it. So one of this coach he said to me, I know somebody at Sheffield, Glenn Knight, who's the academy coach at Sheffield, who lives in Huddersfield. I'd like him to come have a look at it. But yeah, great. And Glenn Knight never came to watch me play because Sheffield was a team that didn't have a rich academy reserve grade like your Wigan, your Warrington, your St Helens, where players, they could have the pick of the crop. Sheffield had to have who they had, and if they had an opportunity to get an extra player into play academy, it didn't cost them anything, and I were going down on my own free will. So Glenn Knight, I had a chat with Glenn Knight. He ended up taking me down training, and it was just like, people get paid for this. It was still part-time, so we're talking 1993 here, so it was still part-time. People still worked and they played in the evening. It was just like, I'd just walk into the changing rooms, and it was just like, wow. It just opened up my eyes. The Don Valley Stadium where they trained, the big Olympic Stadium, and it was just like, this isn't a bad thing. This is all right. And I ended up, Glenn Knight, he ended up being a little bit of my mentor then. He sort of like helped me a lot. He used to pick me up. He used to take me to training. He used to be my coach, and he used to give me some good advice. and helped me along, and it put me in good stead. But it just opened my eyes up to what actually was the real world of rugby league, because I was rugby union. I'd never had the dreams to be a professional rugby player. I'd seen the Challenge Cup final on TV with my brother playing it, but it was a pipe dream. It wasn't something that I'd never had as an acceptance that I was going to do. So if the coach at Huddersfield YMCA had not have finished that team, I can honestly say that I would have still been there and I would not have been a professional rugby player. So I was very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, to get to a club like Sheffield where I was able to experience academy rugby, reserve grade rugby, and experience and being able to develop and being able to grow in it. And I'm very thankful that it was that type of team, because if I'd have gone to a team like Leeds, I probably would not have made it because of my history. I'd never played Great Britain Academy. I'd never come through a system. I'd never been in a scholarship, and I'd never been through any system. So going to a club like Sheffield was huge for me, for my confidence and my belief in myself as a player. So it's strange how things fall into place. How I can say that I was good at rugby, but I was very, very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in fate. Everything happens for a reason, and in a way, what you're talking about. Rugby league, it's been a saviour for you, really. It sounds like it's been a saviour because where do you think you'd have been without rugby league?
Yeah, that's it. I'd have been playing amateur. I'd have probably gone back to Huddersfield YMCA. I'd probably still be playing at Veterans now, and I'd have been a mechanic, and that's the weird thing, isn't it? How your life, how just one defining moment can change your life hugely, and that's it. And you talk about it now, and I talk about that one thing, but I've gone on to represent my country 43 times and play in so many big games, play at the grand final, and such a privileged position to, I'm so privileged to have had that career and have had them experiences. I'm so grateful for the opportunity and being in the right place at the right time. But then when I did have that opportunity, it was a lot of hard work and dedication that worked for me then. That I had to take that control, and I suppose because it was rugby, I had that belief in myself, and because I loved it, and because I was passionate about it, and because I wanted to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you say in the right place at the right time, and you've gone on to achieve all those things. But then, like you say, let's concentrate on the bit in the middle here, because all that hard work, sacrifice, dedication, that you've had to do, and the smartness that we spoke about, all that needs to come into place. But what do you think, just going back to Sheffield, because what do you think was your most proudest moment playing for Sheffield? Would you say that was winning the Challenge Cup in '98 and beating the favourites Wigan, who were considerable favourites, or knocking Barry John Mather out at Castleford?
You know what? It's like it's madness in it. The fact that everybody in life supposedly has 10 minutes of fame, and that was it's probably my 30 years of fame. People forget about your career, and I still get it now. 1998 that was, and it was, oh, you're that bloke that in Challenge Cup, in that Challenge Cup game at Castleford, and it's like, yeah, that's me. Please just stop being so bitter and nasty. And I still get, I don't get. It's now that you've retired, it's great because it's all in jest and it's all fun. But at the time, there was a lot of serious hatred for me from the Castleford fans, because that was their year. They'd knocked out Leeds, they'd knocked out Bradford. that Leeds and Bradford were two of the big guns that year, and Castleford had knocked them out. And then they were just coming up against Sheffield in quarter-final. And that incident happened. I still plead my defence that he came towards me in a threatening manner. So it was all self-defence. I'll stand up in a court of law and say that. No doubt after this, I'll get a tweet or I'll get a message saying, "What it balls, it was a cheap shot." But there was some real hatred from Castleford. And I remember Nick Fozzard. Nick Fozzard were doing a bit of commercial work at Castleford. So he asked me as a favour. He said, "Oh, can you come down to do a bit of corporate work at Cass and that, we'll just do interviews and stuff like that." I'm like, yeah, I'll do it for you. No problem, mate. Great bloke, Fozzie. And then he had to come back to me and he said, "I've had a word with the board, and because of what happened back in 1998, we don't think it's wise that you come to the..." We're talking years afterwards here, and it was just like, whoa, please, just let it go. It happened, it's been done. But yeah, people do hold a grudge, and people will hold a grudge for a very long time. But that's my 10 minutes of fame, is that.
Do you know what though? I mean, I remember I was in the last year of high school, so I was like massive into rugby then. I didn't miss a game. If it was on telly, I was watching it. If Wigan were playing, I was at Central Park, and I remember watching that game. And it's. Do you know when you're a kid and you remember rugby league moments? I remember Kelvin Skerritt doing Super Kel. I was at that game. I was at Central Park watching it. I remember that's an incident. I remember Barry McDermott elbowing at Central Park. And there's just little things that you remember. But, going back to rugby league here and going off subject a little bit, but that's what we enjoy. That's what people wanted to see back then. And it's been sanitised so much now. You don't do that.
Yeah, hugely sanitised, and you don't. It was always going to happen. That the fact that it's got professional and it's evolved. As it evolved for the better, it's more professional. There's cameras everywhere. Everything. The way with health and safety and the way all the game's gone, it's had to have gone that way. Could they allow a little? If they allow one fight, then they've got to allow it all the time. So you can understand that they don't want the thuggery side of it to take over, because we were basically classed as thugs. Some of the names that you get called is downright thuggery. I used to get away with headbutting and all sorts, but I got the same done to me, and I was never bitter about that. If somebody got a headbutt on me and the ref didn't say it, I'd say, "Well done, congratulations, but I'm going to get you back. Something's going to happen. I'm going to get you back." And I love that bit of rivalry. And if you can get away with it, then so be it. But now there's that much on you. There's cameras all over the place. There's so much scrutiny. There's so much, after the game, everything is then analysed. So you can't risk it. You just can't risk it because there's just eyes all over the place. And as you say, it has been sanitised, but it's the way of the world in a lot of things. It's professional. It's faster. It's still a great game, and it's still a great spectacle. And you can still do some really, really high impact shots. There's still big hits. The shoulder charge has been taken out of it, but you can still do some huge hits. That's still evident to see, and I'm glad that I played in that era, and I was allowed to get away with certain things, because it made you think about things. It made you challenge. You always try and break the rules, don't you? Or you always want to try and push the boundaries. I used to get absolutely abused for kick chase going up, and I'd run back and I'd escort the attackers, but I'd never deviate offline, and I'd never do anything wrong by the book. But the fans used to hate it, but I used to get away with it because I'd found a loophole in the law. It ended up changing, so I had to adapt again. Yeah. That was the beauty of it, and that's how we used our brains to always just try and, how I use my brain to just try and adapt everything to try and make things better for me, or to make things to my advantage.
See, I told you were smart, Keith, thinking all the time.
Yeah, you got to do, haven't you?
Let's talk about just staying on Sheffield for a second, but let's talk about that Challenge Cup victory, because what do you put that down to? Because you were massively underdogs. I remember, I always have a laugh about this with you and Johnny Lawless about, you ruined my weekend. I remember being at my nan's caravan watching that Challenge Cup final and just like, this is going to be a breeze for Wigan. And they get beat. What do you put it down to that? Because John Keir is famous for it, as an underdog winning games. What was it all down to that?
Yeah, he's John Keir is one of them motivational type of coaches. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He lives and breathes rugby league. If anybody has ever seen 101 Greatest Tries, John Keir running down that right wing scoring that try.
And he's got her as well.
Biggest calves in the world. That's all he's still got huge calves. But we were realistic. We were a mid-table team. We were never going to finish top of the table. We had that realism. The Challenge Cup is the beauty of the underdog at times, and we've seen it. Catalans won it a few years ago. There's opportunities to take the odd scalp.
You had your chance there. I thought Sir Warrington did it against us.
I can say 2005 Hull FC they against Leeds that day, and that's another tale. That's another story. But the Challenge Cup can be the day of the underdog. Because it's a short round, it's on the day, winning that game. And we were very fortunate early on. We had some easy ties. We were at Lee away. I think we had Egremont as well at home, an amateur team. And then it started to get tasty when we got to Castleford. That was the big test for us. And then when we won that, the belief system in us just. And again, you could say we were quite lucky. Again, we missed the big guns. It was Salford in the semi-final. Was a lot to do with it. We did have a lot of belief in ourselves because we focused on the Challenge Cup that year. A lot of our impetus on the training, on the season, on everything. The league didn't matter just as long as we ended up mid-table or still in a decent position. The Challenge Cup was the focus. So we were fully bought into that as a group. And John Keir being the motivational type of coach that it was, certain elements of it fell into place. And the team meeting before the actual final, it was just one of them out-of-body experiences where just, when you've been in them rooms and you can just feel the emotion and you can feel the passion and you can feel the intensity. And that was because there was so much, we had the belief in ourselves. And you could say, with us being odds-on favourites to lose, all the crap that were put in the press about us that we didn't have a cat in hell's chance. There was no pressure on us. And you could tell when we were walking out. I loved walking out of the tunnel. We were told to enjoy the experience. I remember looking into the crowd, looking for your family, waving, enjoying it, because they can be few and far between. That could have been my last ever final. So I wanted to enjoy it. The first time at the old Wembley, I'd followed my brother's footsteps. I'd walked on the hallowed turf. And we loved it. We absolutely loved it. And the experience was amazing. But we also had the right game plan. Things did fall into place. But we had the belief system was huge in us, and it was our main focus. And then we had that dogged defensive attitude, because I remember at one point Wigan had spent that much time attacking us in our half that there were pigeons on the Wigan's. The pigeons had started to roost in Wigan's half because we've not been down there for that long. So it was one of them days. Yes, everything fell into place, but we had the belief that we could do it and we wanted to do it. So you like to say that everybody has beliefs. You always go into finals with beliefs, but everything just seemed right. Everything felt right. And if you could bottle that and you could repeat that, people would make millions. It's probably something that you could never experience again as a team, what we did and what we went through. And that's why it was so special. Yeah. Exactly the same when Brian McLennan came from the third grand final. The the experience of that was everything just felt right. Everything felt right. You know, we've had previous grand final wins with Leeds, but that third year, everything just from the first team meeting at pre-season, everything just seemed to feel perfect that we were going to win that because of the work that had gone in behind the scenes and setting the scene and getting the buy-in and doing everything. And they're special moments.
I think using the term the zone, when you're in the zone, there's nothing better than going into a big game and feeling that, I don't know, it's like you can feel energy around you. I must admit, though, I did feel it in 2013 when we played Wigan at Old Trafford, and I thought, we're not going to get beat. I can just feel it. I've had this feeling before. 16-4 at half-time, and we ended up getting turned over, so I was wrong on that occasion. But I do get it, like that. When you've got that energy and that belief as a team, it's just absolutely phenomenal. You just know that you're going out and you're just not getting beaten, and you can't beat that. And I was speaking to Paul Cullen last week, actually, and he said the best bit of advice that he got given from a coach was by John Keir. He said, and Cole was coaching with John Keir, and Cole got his notepad out and he started writing in pen, and he said, get rid of that pen and change it to a pencil. He said, because you'll be rubbing everything out in a minute. He said, because things change like that. And he said, it's the best bit of advice that he's given. But he's just a tactician into when it comes to rugby, and he can think on his feet, which makes him a great coach.
Yeah, he did do. You know, for the actual, as an actual, like you say, tactician and that side of things, you know, I've had different variants. You know, I did an international coach, but I remember one thing very early on in my time at Sheffield. Darren Turner, Rocky Turner, was a back row player, called Rocky because he were always fighting. He loved to fight, and he played above his weight. He wasn't the heaviest, he wasn't the biggest, but he played. He was rock hard. He was solid. He was a fighter, and he'd run through a brick wall for anybody. I remember me and Mark Aston were trying to coach him some lines, and John Keir comes over and he says, "Forget about that, Rocky. Just run over the fucking top of him." And, you know, when you look back and think, well, that's not coaching, that. But you know, his career in the game, he's been my nemesis for that 2005 Challenge Cup final. He played mind games with me because he said that if I played in that game, he were going to play. That's the only reason why I played with a broken leg, because I want to see John Keir running out on that pitch one more time. So, but yeah, you can't fault his career. He's been superb, and you know, full respect.
And still going as well with Bradford.
I know. So we'll be coming up against Bradford soon with Sheffield. Back coaching there. We think we've got them first game at season. So looking forward to knocking heads against him again.
Locking arms. Just moving on from Sheffield, because it was a great time for your career, and it made you really as a player. And you know, winning that Challenge Cup and the Barry John Mather incident, you're in the headlines. You're playing well as a big tall centre for Sheffield, and then obviously Leeds come. What made you transition to Leeds? Obviously a big club, but was it the fact that, you know, because you know Sheffield were perceived to be doing all right to win that Challenge Cup, but did you want to test yourself and have a look at then making the international scene? Because when you went to Leeds, it weren't a smooth transition, if I remember, as a player.
Yeah, it was very interesting, the transition to Leeds. But yeah, I got to a point, you know, I'm very thankful for Sheffield because they allowed me to grow. When I first played back in the 94-95 season, I was raw, skinny, you know, didn't have the best of skill, and I was allowed to develop. So it helped me grow. I was very lucky to go on a 1996 tour for Great Britain from that season, first year of Super League. To get that experience to go on tour really whetted my appetite to play international rugby, and to play 2 games for my country on that tour was amazing. And as a kid to go on tour to Fiji, Papua New Guinea and New Zealand, when the furthest I'd ever been was the east coast of Hull on a family holiday. Never been abroad. I'd been abroad once, and that were it, and Paris for the Super League game. So being a jet setter wasn't something that I was about. So to get the opportunity to go on that tour was a life-changing experience. And I developed to be a very good centre. Again, I was on the bench for that first game of the Super League. Me and Mark Aston were on the bench, and I ended up getting an opportunity to get on the pitch early. Joe Dakitoga, the big Fijian, got injured, so after 10 minutes, I was on the pitch, and that season just was outstanding for me as a season. Scoring tries, made a little bit of a name for myself, and it set the tone for me, and it set my standards as a player and where I wanted to go. And then getting on that tour again, it was just like, wow, I want to do this. I want to do this more. I want to play for my country. And it gave me that drive and that ambition. 1997, I didn't play country, but then I was back in 1998. We won the cup that year. Sheffield had to progress from that. It had to progress, and it didn't. Financial difficulties came around. The owner at the time were losing a lot of money because the club hadn't grown probably what it wanted to because of that success. So it got to a stage where they needed to make some money. They didn't want to sell me, but I asked for a transfer. I asked for a transfer because I wanted to progress my career. And I remember they did a little bit of a piece, did the Yorkshire Post before we played Leeds at Leeds. And we were at the Village Hotel, and John Keir sort of like threw the paper at me of the news piece and said, you know what, just give Keith the ball for this game. And I remember it. And, you know, I played outstanding. I had an outstanding game that year. And I put my transfer request in, and Wigan and Leeds were interested party. It had gone on a full year. Wigan ended up pulling out because they signed someone called Steve Renouf. So that ended up putting a quash to that. But, you know, Leeds, it took me, I started negotiating at the beginning of the season, and I didn't sign until the very last game of the season. I signed on the Friday afternoon, played on the Friday evening for the last regular round of the season. It took that long to sort out because Sheffield were like, he wants to go, we've got to get rid of him, but no, we don't. He's still playing well. We've got to keep him because we want to grow the team. So there was a lot of toing and froing going on. And then finally the deal got done. I went to Headingley on a Friday afternoon. I had lunch with Graham Murray and Gary Everington and played that night. Never met the team, never trained, never done anything, and played. Walked in the changing room, met my team for the first time, and played against London Broncos for the last round of the regular season.
Bloody hell. So that was a big bit of a transition there, like a messy transition, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd already made enemies though, because Chev Walker was he was a young kid. He was a young kid coming through the system then. You know, when you're a young kid, you get a bonus for playing so many games. And I think Chev's fifth game of the season, so he would have had a big, I don't know, it might have been about $5,000 bonus that he would have got for that game, but he'd had that call Friday afternoon, you're not playing, I'm playing, so he lost his bonus. So straight away I've created enemies at Leeds.
Yeah. Not what you want, taking money off a Yorkshireman, is it?
Oh no, definitely not.
Just like transitioning further here, because obviously you played in one of the most successful Leeds teams of Super League, really. You know, everyone wants to emulate Leeds. I know Wigan have got a big history, but in Super League, like Leeds are, I'd say Wigan are the Man Uniteds of rugby league, and I'd say Leeds are like the Man Cities, really. And you've had that really good basis now for quite a number of years. I know over the last few years it's been a transition, but what would you put that down to, that winning culture? And is there anything specific that you'd put it down to? Is it down to a coach? Is it just down to the group of players?
It's down to a very lengthy process of having key positions of people growing up together and coming through the ranks together. You Kevin Sinfield, you Danny McGrath, you Rob Burrows, you know, Jamie Jones Buchanan, all them different type of qualities and core elements of sticking in that team in that arena, and then keep on adding bits. Dean Lance came in 2000. Not the great. That was my first real season. Not the greatest of coaching appointments. He really struggled to fit into the pressures and the demands of a team like Leeds because of the expectation. Even though they've not won a championship for so long, there's still a vast amount of expectation, and because of the money that gets spent and because of the history of the Leeds team, there's still that expectation. So he didn't take to it that well, and the pressure got to him. Darryl Powell then came in. He struggled with the transition because he went straight from being a player straight into the coach. But he implemented a lot of good things. But because
could you see Darryl Powell's qualities then as an early coach that quick?
Yeah, definitely. He when I was at Sheffield, I was always referred to as the next Darryl Powell. He was exactly the same as me, coming through the ranks at Sheffield, playing international at a team like Sheffield. There's not many people that have done that. Me, Paul Broadbent, Dale Horton, and Darryl Powell. Mark Aston got his 5 minutes of fame in France, but there's never been a vast amount of international experience there. And on that first tour, Paul Broadbent was on that tour, and he was my only other Sheffield colleague. So I looked up to Darryl a lot as a player and tried to emulate him a little bit. And you could see his thought processes on the game, and you could see his qualities, but it was just too soon. Going straight from being a player to straight from being that coach. And I remember once he pulled me and he said, "You're against me," because I'm quite. I'm opinionated and I speak my mind. If there's something that I'm not sure about, I'll question it. Devil's advocate's my downfall, because if somebody's really still putting something across, I'll still try and question it just for them to then cement their beliefs to me, because I want them to fill me with confidence that they 100% believe what they're putting across to me. So I can, you could talk to me about your career and I could question you just so you can then make me think, you know what, I believe him. He's confident about it. So I play devil's advocate a lot. And Pauli said to me, he said, "You're against me." And I'm like, "What makes you say that?" He says, "Because, you're always disagreeing with everything," because I was quite opinionated, and I was one of them people that would speak up if there was a meeting. I'd speak up if there was something that I didn't quite think worked. I'd speak up and I put my opinions across. So he said that I was against him all the time when I wasn't, because it's a team sport, we're a team. And that probably might have been a little bit of lack of confidence from him, or because it was a new remit for him to be thrust straight into the Leeds Rhinos first team coach. It was a pressure job, and it's a tough job, a very tough job to be involved in straight away for your first coaching job. And I don't know if he would, but I could say that he would probably put his hand up and say that it was too soon for him to get that job. If he'd have gone away, done a couple of years coaching experience in Championship or whatever, and then come back, it'd have been outstanding. But he did start setting the tone for then Tony Smith coming in, who you had at Warrington, who was just meticulous on the tiny things, the little things, the core skills, the basics, and the simplicities of the game. And that's what the game's about, is the simplistic side of it.
Yeah. And like you're saying there about, being opinionated and challenging. And I think you need them players in a team to have a successful team. I think you need players to challenge you. And I think, like you say, it might not have been the right time for Darryl at that particular moment. Big transition that from player to coach straight away. But I think, that quality you've got there as a player where you're questioning things constantly, you need that within a team. You can't, you've got to challenge your coaches to some extent. And going back to Tony, you know, Tony didn't mind that because he had his way and he had his reasons and his opinions for doing something a certain way. So if you challenged him, you knew that he'd come back with something.
That's what you want in it. If you're not quite 100% sure of something, or even you just want people to fill you with confidence, even if it's wrong, how they put it across and how they portray it, it's like that's what gets you the belief, and that's what gets you the relationship and the understanding. Because if you're telling me to run through a brick wall, you've got to explain to me to make sure that I understand it, that it is the right thing to do, whether it is right or wrong. If you input that into me, or you instill that confidence in me by what you're saying and how you're putting it across, then I'm going to do it, and I'm going to believe you. Tony was a very dry bugger though. One, he was very sarcastic. You had to understand. I'd have hated to have been a young kid with Tony in early stages, because I was one of the older heads, so I could take his dry humour a little bit more. But if he wanted to shoot you down, he could shoot you down quite easily, couldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was fortunate what you're saying there. I weren't a young lad when he came on. I'd have been about 28, 29, so I was like established in Warrington team, but I believe he simmered down a little bit coming to Warrington then Leeds, because when he come to Warrington from Leeds, we was like, shit, this is going to be like high school. And it was completely different. You know, he got on really well, and maybe he adjusted to the characters that he had in the team at the time. But you just mentioned it then, that the simplicity that Tony had as a game plan. I remember going to amateur clubs doing coaching sessions when Tony was coaching. I'd steal some of the drills, and not to try and look like a smart ass, just because there was the core basic principles of rugby league. And coaches would challenge me and say, okay, now like this is under 10 stuff. And it's like, yeah, but this is what we do at Warrington, because you've got to be able to do this stuff. If you can't do these simple basics, then you're never going to become a Rangi Chase or a Lee Breers and them types of people.
Yeah, first pre-season we'd turn up and we'd be up on Abbey Fields and we'd literally be doing half an hour of just simple passing, just working on that and just carrying on working on that. So the core skills of it were the main part of it. So huge. Yeah, I'm the same. Big believer in just working on the core skills. And Tony was a huge part of that, a very big part of that.
At Get a Tax Rebate, we make it easy for you or your business to claim back thousands of pounds in tax. Most people, like Jane and Philip, don't realise that they are owed money from HMRC, so they never claim. All you need to do is fill out a simple form on our website and we'll do the rest. It's that simple. We've also helped business owners claim back millions of pounds in research and development R&D tax credits. So if you're working in a business or own one, contact us today to see if we can help you claim back tax and improve your cash flow. Get a Tax Rebate, your tax refund concierge.
$18.95 Sports and State of Mind, the ultimate lineup.
Macy Vienna Aesthetics, based in Wigan. For all your wrinkle treatments, dermal fillers, lip enhancement, energy boost injections, immune boost injections. Please visit us on Facebook or Instagram at Macy Vienna Aesthetics.
CDX Security, proudly supporting rugby league.
Just obviously you had loads of success, grand final after grand final, winning some big games, international and stuff, but I know that you weren't happy with how it ended at Leeds. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's one of them things that I never had my fairy tale ending. You know, I've ruptured my ACL. It's 10 years in May this year. which it's flown by. You know, people, it's absolutely flown by. But I ruptured my ACL, Challenge Cup quarter final, May 20th, 2011. Back end of the game, in a tackle with Jamie Jones Buchanan, and then 35 years old, that's quite a tough thing to take anyway, because it's a lengthy process. But a 9-month injury, my season had finished, but I was still playing very, very well at the top of my game, and I still had a lot to offer. And I believed I wasn't ready to retire. But then I ended up getting MRSA in hospital. To cut a long story short, 12 operations in 10 months. After the last operation, surgeon said to me, "You'll never play again." But prior to that, the month before, Brian McDermott had been brought in that year, 2011, as head coach. He'd said to me in April, he says, "You're getting old. I'm not sure about you for next year. You've got to prove me wrong," which I never had any issue with. I never had any problem with, because I knew that I was still competent and capable and still playing to the top of my game. And I knew I could do that, because he actually said that I was going to break, which he was right. A month later, I ruptured my ACL. So I knew then, as soon as I'd ruptured my ACL, my Leeds career was over. And then getting the MRSA, my Leeds career was over. So coming to the back end of that year, other players were leaving, and Ali Rawatiti were leaving, and I think it was Chris McKenna, I'm not 100% sure, but there were 2 others leaving, and me, I knew that I was definitely going. And you know, as something at the end of the year, a little bit of a keepsake, there were a couple of books out, and all the squad, the players signing it and writing good things, you know, writing about Ali, great bloke, and all this and stuff like that. And I'm there, and there wasn't one for me, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? Is there something that I don't know here? You know, I've basically ruptured my anterior cruciate ligament. Prior to that, in April, Brian says that he wasn't sure for me next year. I've got a bad infection. I'm not going to play at Leeds again. Is something that I don't know. And I'd signed for the Crusaders as well. Celtic Crusaders, but that ended up falling apart. So I was still in the Leeds camp, because I was technically still a Leeds player. So I'd already signed for another club, but that fell through. So I'm what's going on here? Why is there not this book here? And I never understood it to this day. And I was the person that my career was based on my peers, their opinions, what they thought of me. I'd learned to not listen too much to the fans, because as you say, I'd gone from Sheffield, where we got booed 3 times in 7 years that I were there. You know, they never booed the team. And then I've gone to Leeds, and then all of a sudden I got booed. They called my name out in the 2000 season, and I got booed. You know, and to experience that as a player from your home fans it made me thick-skinned, but it was good for me. It made me understand. You know, fans paid the wages; they've got the right to an opinion. And as you said, they don't know me as a person. They don't know me as an individual. What's important is the people in the changing room. So my career was based on what Kevin Sinfield, what Barry Mack, what Rob Burrow, all them players, what they thought of me as a player. And if I thought that I'd let one of them down in a game, that'd kill me. That would tear me apart. And that's what drove me as a player. I never wanted to let anybody down on that rugby pitch because of what I wanted to achieve. So I never got that keepsake from the players that I'd played with for 13 years. You know, a lot of them players were there at the start when I started and were still there. So I never got that keepsake, and I could never understand it. So I ended up being bitter, angry, and horrible about it, because I never questioned anything, because I'm not that. I didn't want to cause a fuss because I didn't understand it. I just drifted out. I just left, and I didn't have anything else really to do with it. And I just locked myself away, and I just shut myself away. And I never spoke about this again until this year. And I remember speaking to my missus about it. And it's nothing. It's something and nothing to anybody else. You know, I'm talking to you about it now, and it's nothing. I could have gone and spoke to somebody. I could have gone, Gary, what is going on? I knew Gary Evrington for a long time. He was chief executive. Gary, what is going on here? Why have I not got a book? And he could have said, well, probably because this is happening or that's happening. And it had been explained to me. But because I didn't do that, I bottled it in for 9 years. And because I finished the way I did, and I didn't finish on my terms, we all want the fairy tale ending. You wanted a fairy tale ending. Yours probably wasn't a fairy tale ending either. That's how we want to retire how Danny Maguire retires or Kevin Sinfield retires, winning the treble, something like that. That's what you want. That's a perfect scenario. My last game, Challenge Cup quarter final, and you've forgotten about, you're done. I'm no longer Keith Senior, the professional rugby player. I'm back to being Keith Senior. So I was an horrible person. I was bitter, angry, and pissed off about it, and I never got the answers. And it took me 9 years to talk about it. And I spoke to my missus for the first time about it, and I just burst into tears. You know what I mean? It was one of them cathartic moments where to you, me telling you about it, it's like, well, it's not much, because technically it's not much. But for me at that time, it meant everything. It was so powerful and strong to me that I'd put everything into it, and I thought, why have I been treated this way? I've given blood tears for this club, and I've not even been given a keepsake like I should have been given, like them lads got. Don't get me wrong, the club's great. Still talk to a lot of them, still invited to a lot of them, still all the ex-players things. That was just me at that time. I just created something that was worse than what it was because of how I perceived it, and because I couldn't talk about it, and because I didn't want to talk about it. I just locked it deep inside me and just said, fuck you, I'm just going to be myself again now. I don't need anything to do with you. And it took me a long time to get over that. Like I say, I dealt with it, but I never spoke about it. And 9 years later, I spoke about it to my missus. And it was one of them cathartic moments where it was just like everything had just been released. And it was like, why didn't I do this here? You know, why didn't I do this earlier? And we did it. I did it again for the Rugby M interview when they came to my house for the documentary that we're looking at doing. And again, it just released a load of emotions talking about it, because I'd only just started talking about it. Now I can talk about it quite easily, and it's weird how you can lock things inside, build them up, because at that time it was huge to me. It was massive because it was my identity. That was me. I was Keith Senior, professional rugby player, because as a child I didn't have an identity. I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a meaning, but rugby was my meaning. It was what made me. It made me what the person that I was. It made me a shit person at times because I was selfish, because it was all about me. If I had a game, it was about me. It's not anybody that was in my life. I've got to focus on game day today, so leave me be. Let me do what I need to do. And I was selfish a lot of the time about that, but that was my identity, and I'd put everything into that identity of being a professional rugby player. And then when I ended up being that, I had nothing. I had nothing again. I was back to being a 16-year-old kid that didn't have any future, that didn't have any dreams, that didn't have any aspirations, and it were horrible, absolutely horrible. And I couldn't deal with that again.
Do you know what, mate? And I understand where you're coming from with that. I didn't have the fairy tale ending at Warrington because I basically had a year left on my career, on my contract, sorry. And I decided I wanted to leave Warrington a year early. So I asked Tony Smith for a release. He granted it, and I went to Featherstone. And when I went, I do hospitality at the games, and when I was watching some of the players play the last game who'd not played as long as me at the club, we got this players' tunnels, stage on the field and all that. And I'm thinking, fuck me, I played 16 years here and I didn't even get like a thank you, kiss me arse or nothing really. But, like you say, how many times does it finish on your terms? And I've only myself to blame for how my situation ended. But point I'm trying to make here is when you've dedicated your life and you're emotionally involved and you've been through all that emotion with yourself, with your teammates, with your coaches, with the fans, when it suddenly ends, it's like something dies, really. There's like a grieving process there. And I think you want to feel valued from your club because you're right, mate. Everything you give blood, sweat, tears, you sacrifice your family, you sacrifice so much for this career. You play with injuries, you sacrifice your future life because you've had, how many of the operations, so you're struggling around with your kids. You want to feel valued off the club. And I completely understand where you're coming from. You're right, you can listen to it and think, well, why he felt like that because he didn't get a book. But when you're emotionally involved with something, fuck me, it cuts deep that when that happens.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The club, I can't speak highly enough of them. That's one incident, but I'm very, very privileged to be able to play, in the Rob Borough game. There were only a handful of us that had that opportunity. So I am still in very high regard at the club and the fans, and I really do appreciate that. And that's not something that I'm saying, you're saying you're back at Warrington doing all that. I can go to Leeds anytime and I'm appreciated and I'm recognised for what the service that I've delivered, and that's never going to change. And they've got a tunnel that they've set up, and they've got every number 1 to 17, and they've got, for the number 4, there's I think there's 10 players, so they've picked out 10 centres, and I'm on there, because of my record, for what I achieved at Leeds, so I'm recognised, and I still get recognised by the club, and I'm totally grateful for that and really appreciate that. That was just one incident that cut deep with me at the time, and I probably magnified it, but it's happened. It's been dealt with. I've understood it. I've recognised it, and I've put it to bed. I love the club still love the club. There's still some great people there that work there from my time of playing there, and it's always going to be one of the biggest parts of my life, because I spent such a long time there, and it was my main identity and my main purpose. So it's always going to be one of them places that I'm very, very fond of.
How did you handle retirement then, Keith? Going on to retirement and not, obviously it's a sudden abrupt end. No, it's not nice, I bet, if you finish on injury.
Yeah, you're getting the gist of it. It was pretty dog shit, wasn't it? I was one of them players. The way the player welfare system is now, it's superb, and preparation and education and preparing for the next stage. I was that involved in my career that I never thought about that. But again, because it was education and I wasn't that interested in it, I sort of like put it off. I'll do it next year. I'll think about that next year. But I've played 43 times for my country. I've done this, I've done that, I've done near enough everything in the game. I'll be all right. No, I'm sure I could get a job somewhere. I'm sure there's some opportunity. And I actually had a word with Gary about a job, and there was an opportunity. This was before I'd retired, of possibly looking at doing a little bit of corporate, a little bit of, commercial, bit of coaching, dipping into all them type of things. Then when I did my knee, I had to take time away. I had to just get my head right and get away from everything because of the circumstances. I just wanted to lock myself away. I was going through a shit time at home. I went through a separation. Total, two major life-changing situations happened in a close proximity to each other. So I was going through. I didn't have a career. I didn't have a future, and I'd lost my identity and career. So I was going through a bit of shit, so to speak. I ended up moving in with Luke Ambler up in Halifax, which is quite ironic how the stories go for both of us. But he was a young kid, so I ended up just then living a little bit of a kid's lifestyle. There might be 10 years difference between me and Luke. Maybe, no, there'll be more. So, all his mates will be coming round. They're still young. He had his own house and that, going out on the piss. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything to do. So I'd go out on the piss and I'd get pissed and I'd live a life and I'd be a kid again. I'd be bored senseless because I had nothing to do. So then when you sat there in your own thoughts and you're thinking about things and you think, what am I going to do? Is this my life now? Is this all I'm going to be? I've gone from playing for my country, playing in grand finals at Old Trafford, to now I'm living with Luke Ambler with no job, no career and no future. So I felt shit about myself. I felt really bad about myself. And I just ended up getting into all sorts of shit. I was out on piss all the time. I was just drinking. A lot of it was to do with boredom, but a lot of it was to the fact of just how crap I felt about myself. And I just remember one moment, it was actually a New Year's Eve, been out, been on drink, went crazy, went absolutely mad, came back. I don't remember the night. I don't remember much about it. I had buttered Luke Campbell as well. Woke up the next day and saw the devastation. And the realization was that my life was shit. I've wasted my life because I didn't have a career. And that's what my mindset was at that moment in time. I've wasted my life. I've no career. I've nothing to look forward to. Fuck it. There's nothing else for me to do. So I was just going through some real shit stages, and then you look back at what I actually achieved in my career, and it's like, how stupid. How can I think that? I had a beautiful daughter. I didn't have a real close relationship with her at that time because of other things that went on with my ex and stuff. But I had a beautiful daughter. I had so many other things, but none of them were my identity. Being a family man, being a father, being that person, I didn't see myself as any of that. I just saw myself as a rugby player. And then when I couldn't do that anymore, I didn't see myself as anything. And I didn't see that I could be anything or I wanted to be anything. So I really, really struggled. I went through a lot of deep, dark moments, a lot of time in my own, because like I said, I'd never speak to anybody. I'd never talk to anybody about anything. And I'd just go up to Scamandon Dam, car park at the top, and I literally used to just sit there for 10, 12, 13, 14 hours. And I just used to sit there and overlooking the dam and just staring into space, just sat there with my own thoughts. And that's all I did. And when you spend that amount of time with yourself in your own thoughts and not liking yourself and thinking that you're a bad person and thinking that you're shit and thinking you haven't got a future, thinking you haven't got anything good in your life, it's difficult to handle and it's difficult to deal with.
Yeah, again, I can understand where you're coming from because I felt exactly the same. You throw yourself into rugby and you're right, there's a selfish element to achieve at high level in sport, no matter what you do. And I even say, any career, you've got to have an element of selfishness about you. You've got to sacrifice your family. And, we've all done it. And you're right, when you come away from that rugby environment, you don't see yourself as a father, you don't see yourself as anything else because you're purely just magnified on that rugby career. That's all you've ever wanted to do. And I said it at the beginning, rugby league's like a saviour to a lot of people. and it gives you so much. And when it's taken away from you, you're like, fuck me, what am I going to do? You know, and I had qualifications. I'd set myself up for my future. But when I come away from it, that's why I come out of retirement 5 times, because I struggled. But, you know, it's a tough transition. And, you know, it's not getting on your pity pot and saying, oh, fucking hell, poor me because I've lost everything. It's just that you're emotionally attached to this career. To put a phrase on it, it's a drug of choice, if so to speak. Do you know what I mean? It's such a big coping mechanism for us for life, really.
Do you know, that's not just sportsmen though. The problem with our careers, it ends, if you're lucky, between 30, 35. If you're very lucky, you get up to the 37, 38, 39 bracket. That's the realisation. But it's in, you know, I believe it's in most career paths when you come to that retirement side of it. My dad went through it, and he was just a truck driver. You know, that he struggled to come to terms with the fact that he wasn't that person anymore. And you know, you don't want to downgrade the difference between a professional rugby player and a truck driver, but it's still an identity, it's still a career, and that change can be hard for a lot of people. As a 35-year-old, and then being told you've got to start again, you've got to start your life again, you've got to start your education again, and that's the stupid. I can hold my hand up and say that's my fault. That is my fault. There wasn't the player welfare system that there is now. There wasn't the people to guide you, but I still should have been smarter to do that. Right? You say you set yourself up. You set yourself up with your career, your education, and the next stage of it. But you still struggled. You still managed to feel that, you know, to feel shit and feel worthless at times about it by not being able to play the game anymore. And it's not everybody. Not everybody goes through them stages. We all miss the game, but some people struggle more than others because that was my main identity.
And you know, with the work that we're involved in as well, Keith, we know personally that, you know, there's like a pandemic in this, you know, sporting, not just rugby league. This is in sport in general. So many sports people struggling now to deal with coming away from the sport. I think I'm not saying people didn't struggle in the past, because I know that some players did. I've spoke to people pre-Super League about, you know, them finishing. But especially with rugby league now, full-time professional athletes, you know, those full-time professional athletes like yourself, you know, coming to retirement, it's a big, massive change. And, you know, we all know it's not life-changing money neither. You earn good salaries, but, you know, you're not necessarily set for life.
No, definitely not. Rugby league has always been classed as a working class background. I'm from a council estate in Huddersfield. My dad was a truck driver. My mother was a housewife who did a little bit of charity work. That was my upbringing. I was going to be a manual labour. I wasn't going to be a doctor or a vet or I wasn't going to achieve too much. I'd accepted that, but then to be put on a pedestal for the career that I had, all of a sudden I amounted to something. I actually amounted to something. I would have still amounted to something anyway, but I was getting pats on the back for being a rugby player, which is, you know, my super ego. It affected me hugely because I'd gone from one criteria of being a nobody or never aspiring to anything to all of a sudden being somebody, and being somebody at the very top level as well. You know, so dealing with that was difficult. But like I say, when I started, it was still part-time, 1996. 93 I started, 96 everybody went full-time. So player welfare was there, didn't need to be there for the career transition because everybody had jobs. Rugby league was part-time. So it took a long time for the sport to realise that all of a sudden they're getting a lot of people coming out of of school, some with not much education and just being a professional rugby player, and then they've got to go back into the working environment at 35 years old and starting again. Not having everybody's careers are taking off at 35 years old and progressing, and they've done the hard yards. We're starting again. So player welfare understood that and started changing because of that, because it knew that it had to sort of like help people push themselves, and then the unfortunate thing that happened to Terry Newton, it opened up people's eyes to the worst part of struggling and the worst part of mental health. So it's the work that's gone into it has been huge, and it's probably they're probably pampered now. They are guided that much, but it's such a short career. Like I said, you don't earn the money that footballers do. You've got to have that next step, and a lot of us, I can say from speaking to a lot of the ex-players, you yourself as well, we're broken. We all need new shoulders. We all need new knees. By the time we get to 50, it's going to be surprising. All the players' reunions are all talking about what have you had new this year? I speak to Barry Mackey. He's had a new shoulder. I need a new shoulder technically, but I can survive with it. So we're pretty messed up individuals. If it's not physically, it's really mentally.
Yeah, no, that's it, mate. You're right, physically. I mean, I looked it out, 15 operations I had in my playing career. I know you mentioned that you had 10 in 12 months, you know what I mean, on a knee injury. And it's unreal. And I often joke that I love having a sauna when everything's open at the gym. I love having a sauna, and I go in and I like going in during the day. So you get like a lot of older guys who have retired, and there's a lot of ex-rugby players in Wigan, and they're all like, 70 years of age, and I'm comparing operations with them, and I'm like 39-year-old bloke, and I shouldn't be able to do that. I shouldn't be able to have more operations than a 70-year-old guy, but we're just having
for the world, though, would you, lad?
100%. I wouldn't. I'd do it all again. I would. Yeah. Like you say, you've got to have the gratitude really to say that we've done what we have for a long amount of time. I signed for Warrington in '99, and to say that, I played my last professional game in 2015, come out of retirement a few times, but it's such a privilege to do what we did. And I'll just touch briefly on what you're doing now as well, Keith, because I know you're coaching at Sheffield, but you're part of that sort of player. You see part of that player transition, and you're working currently with Rugby League Curs. Has it been an eye opener for you in terms of what you're seeing now within the sport?
Yeah, definitely. It's been a godsend for me as well. After a while, I ended up going to work with the Leeds Rhinos Foundation. That got me back in the working environment. It gave me a little bit more sense of purpose, and then I got into coaching at Sheffield, and then had the opportunity to go full time with Rugby League Cares and get involved. And it opens up your eyes. It opens up your eyes about the work that does actually go on. Like I said, I say it in tongue in cheek in the fact that players are actually pampered, but it's down to a lot of hard work. And with the offload thing that the offload sessions that we deliver, that we're a part of, getting out into the community and sitting down and talking with rugby fans and chatting with them and just chewing the fat and just having that relatability. We put our hands up and say that we epitomise masculinity. You portray a male dominant person, he's big ball, covered in tattoos, and he plays rugby. I can say that I epitomise a male masculine person, and it's been good for me work with Rugby League Cares, understand the psychological side of it a lot more, self-reflect, look deep, look into my childhood. You know, I'm doing a lot of cognitive analytic therapy at the moment, looking back at my childhood, because whenever I did something, I always say, "Oh, that's, you know, I would never blame my childhood. I've been brought up off my beliefs or anything like that." But then you actually do some deep soul searching and reflecting, and you can see how you've developed, like with the way I was brought up, by being a little bit of a loner, looking after myself, making sure, you know, it was always just about me. It was nothing about anything else. And that was how I grew up into being an adult. It was always about me, and I was pretty selfish about that. And I've created a lot of shit because of that, and hurt a lot of people because of that. And I understand that a lot more now. I'm not using it as an excuse, but I can see how it's portrayed me as an individual, and your beliefs, and just simple things about values. You know, actually sitting down, and one of the sessions we deliver is about your core values. I don't think I've ever had any. I don't think I've ever really truly believed in core values. So to actually sit down and think about it, and reflect on things, and understand them, and it does help you. It does help you. You know, so I'm a big believer in everything that we're delivering when it comes to the offload and the mental health side of things. That it's huge. And hugely effective, and it has been hugely effective to me, and I'm very fortunate to be in that position, to have it on tap. Anytime I've got an issue, I know that I can speak to a trained clinician and have a chat with them about anything. So it did open up my eyes a lot, and it's been great for me as a person, but it's also been great for everybody else as well, because I've changed a lot. I was probably the old type of, when I was at first at Sheffield, I was the old type of coach that would F and blind shout, get it done. Now I'm chilled, I'm relaxed, I'm empathetic, I'm more understanding. I'm polar opposites to what I was as a person. Empathy has been the hardest thing for me to do, because years ago, I did not give a shit about anybody. I didn't give a shit about I didn't even give a shit about myself. Never mind, you know, the person on the street. I didn't care about anybody else apart from, you know, the people in my group of players, you know, the team that I were playing with. You know, so empathy has been so hard for me to develop, and, you know, but just to understand it has been great for me.
Yeah, definitely. You know, doing this being involved in you know, with Rugby League Cares and the offload program and the end of the game, it's, you know, it's taken me down to doing this counselling course now, and just doing it, it's unbelievable the stuff that you learn, and the things that when you do learn how, you know, certain things that have happened to you when you passed, how it dictates your life going forward, and your behaviours, and how you feel emotions around certain things. And I think empathy, that's a big one for me, that empathy, because again, I think when you're a professional rugby league player, you put all the onus on you. You're working hard, you're doing everything. So when you look at the person outside you who's walking down the street, you think, well, just fucking work hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just put your hand up and work hard. And it's sometimes it's easy to say that, but then you never know what their backstory is. And I've been guilty of it myself. And I'd say probably over the last 3 years, I've started feeling some empathy for people, and sort of looking at them and saying, you know, if they can't be arsed with something, or they look like they're not trying to find out the reason why that is. Yeah. You know, there must be a backstory to that. I'm not having that people are just lazy, or people are just not interested in anything in life. There's a backstory to it. And getting down into that is so interesting, and you find out that people are fucking interested, and actually people don't open up because no one's ever asked them to.
Yeah. So when we wrote the self-belief session, it resonated. I had the light bulb moment with it when we did that. Me as a kid, my self-belief was shit, really bad, apart from rugby. As a rugby player, my self-belief was sky high. Retirement, my self-belief was back to being shit. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't, anything that I could do. I had no confidence in anything. And I always saw rugby as a coping mechanism. It was my coping mechanism to deal with problems, but it wasn't. It was my self-belief. I got so much self-belief in myself because of the rugby side of it. You know what I'm saying? And then as soon as it wasn't a coping mechanism, it didn't help me deal with things. It was my self-belief. It was everything that that I believed in myself because I was so good at it. And I can say that I was good at it, that my self-belief on rugby was sky high. Everything else, it was still the same. I still couldn't do education. I still couldn't read a book. I still couldn't do all that. So then reflecting, and then like I've dipped into the counselling course. I've done the level 2 just to get a feel of it and gone through that. And then all of a sudden started picking up all these qualifications, which I could have done as a kid. I just didn't have that self-belief to be able to do it. And I'm not saying have that self-belief to be, you've still got your limitations. You've still got to accept your limitations. I'm still, even as a kid, I still would never have been a doctor or whatever. I've not got the smarts for that, but I've got so much more self-belief in everything else. And you still doubt yourself doing that counselling qualifications. There were times when it was like, I can't do this. I'm just not made out for this. And then we've spoke about this and you've been through this, and then you end up passing and you end up getting the qualification. It's just like, you know what, I can actually do this. I can actually put, when I put my mind to something, I can achieve something. And it's not just always rugby, but rugby was my self-belief. It was what made me.
Yeah, you've just said some stuff there what's like really resonated with me though. I can completely understand where you're coming from in terms of that. That's what it was with me. I've said that it's a coping mechanism. I think on some respects it was a coping mechanism because I suffered a lot with anger. Yeah. So if I went training, I could always just wrestle somebody or there'd be an element of contact in that session. And I was always that lad where people would say, fucking hell, buddy, calm down, it's only training. And it was like, because I was angry and I was mad about something. So that, in that respect, was a bit of a coping mechanism there. So probably be locked up if I didn't have it. But no, definitely, going back to the counselling side, I've been saying to my mates, it's fascinating. It's so fascinating because learning a lot about myself and where I've been and where I can go and I think said to you last week, started this counselling course, I was sat down going, fucking can't do this. I'd only been doing it a day. You know what I mean? But my self-belief was I can't do it. And now I've been doing it like for about 3 or 4 weeks. I'm now actually on my first assignment and going, I can actually learn this. I think small incremental steps is a big one. I think we try and achieve this big high level straight away, and for me it doesn't work that. So I try and just do small chunks, bite sizes.
Yes, I'm quite fortunate. My missus studied psychology at uni, so she knows me better than what I am. She knows me better than what I know myself. So, like you said, though, the beauty of it, because of what we do now, I'll come back and we'll just debate stuff because that's the beauty of psychology. It's fluid. It is fluid as well, and it's opinions. And nothing's set in stone. You find your belief and you go for it. And we've had conversations where we've been discussing something. We might just be talking about stress. An hour later, we've still not sorted it out. You know what I mean? We've still not actually come to terms with it because it's such a fascinating factor, but it's so complicated, but also so simple as well.
Yeah.
While we deliver stuff, it is actually so simple, but telling yourself that is actually the hard part. It's so hard to do.
Yeah. And just before we go, Keith, you're coaching at Sheffield, but where's your future now? Where do you see Keith going in the future? Down the coaching route, down the well-being route, the psychology route, what do you see?
Again, we had this conversation, and you've got to a stage now where you're sort of like seeing your steps where you want to go. I'm still playing about with it a little bit. I love the coaching. I love chewing the fat, with Mark Aston. He's another one of them that we'll debate over how to pass a ball for hours. Do you know what I mean? We're chewing the fat over certain things, and we're debating, and we're firing things off each other, and I love that aspect of it. And it's the same about psychology, that side of it as well. You can debate about it for so long, and I enjoy that aspect. So I've looked into the counselling. I'm thinking about doing the level 3 counselling, but then I were also thinking about sports psychology, looking at that side of things. So I'm still dipping. Yeah. I love what I'm doing, and I enjoy the psychological side of it, but I also still love the coaching, but I love the psychological side of the coaching as well.
Yeah.
So I'm a jack of all trades, but a master of none. I'm still finding my feet, but I'm not getting any younger now. I'm 45 next month, so I need to decide pretty quick. If I go into sports psychology, I don't think I can do 3 years at university for the masters.
Yeah, well, do you know what though, Keith? I was speaking to JP a couple of weeks ago, and I wrote something down, and it was Phil Clark just said something so simple to him. He said, when you retire, he said, you just don't know what you're going to be good at. And I've dipped myself into so many different jobs. I'm actually embarrassed for the amount of jobs I've gone from one.
You have got so many qualifications, it's untrue.
Oh, mate, I'm the most qualified man in the country, but I've not, this counselling is the only thing where I'm actually like sat here now and I'm itching to get back to it. And it's like, that is my passion. And I sort of knew that before I did everything else. My issue comes is I listen to people and what their advice is, and I should listen to my head and my heart. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I've listened to people and they've said, oh, set this business up with me and we'll do this and we'll earn this money. And I've been financially driven. And what I've found over the last 3 years, coming away from the rugby side and being in the real world for the last 3 years, I need to follow my passion. I can't just do things for money. And it sounds, some people say, okay, stop being soft, but I can't do it. I've earned some good money in construction when it's coming away from rugby, but it's not my passion. And this counselling now, what I'm doing, this is what I enjoy. You know what I mean? So I think I've found that thing now that I can dive into.
And that's you're hitting the nail on the head a lot for me. That's one of the first questions that if we're signing a new player or even the players that I've got now, it's what's your why? Why do you want to do something? Because that is the most important thing. Because if it is for external gains, there's a good chance that you're not going to be fully committed to it. If you're intrinsically motivated, if it's a passion, if you've got the drive to do that, I'd never need to worry about you. If you're intrinsically motivated to be a professional rugby league player, if you're doing it for the money, right, we might need to keep an eye on you. If you're doing it for the fame, right, we might need to keep an eye on you because you've got an exterior motive why you want to do something. And I use the example of Dorian Yates, one of our S&C guys at Sheffield. He's into bodybuilding, and he being a bodybuilder is I've done my strength and conditioning and I'm passionate about the gym and training and stuff, but to go to them extremes, what they do to diet for what they do, and he'll be one of them people when he's in competition mode, he'll be up at 5 in the morning, he'll do his cardiovascular, he'll go to work for the full day. He'll do his weights and then he'll do another cardio session, maybe 10 o'clock at night. And he's also got to fit in maybe 5,000-6,000 calories a day. Obviously the right things, no crap, and he's got to do that for a space of 3, 4, 5 months. But he loves the process. He absolutely loves the process. It's not about the outcome. And that's what Dorian Yates, he was called the Shadow, because he'd go to a bodybuilding show, he'd win it, and then he'd disappear because he wasn't bothered about the fame, that all the things that go for it. He was just bothered about the process and then getting back to the process. And that's the intrinsic motivation that he had as an individual, and I'm a big believer in that. And you found your intrinsic motivation, you found your passion, what you're passionate about. It's not when you were working in construction, it was for the money. That was your need. You needed that money. But end of the day, it's not your passion. It's not what you're passionate about. So finding what you want to do. Who cares if it's a bit less money?
Yeah.
It's better for yourself, though, isn't it? You're itching to get back into it. You're dying to get back into what you're passionate about. I had a chat with a guy today as well, and we were talking about this. He said, passion is pain, which it is.
Yeah.
You suffer a lot of pain doing your passion.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%.
Yeah.
No, do you know what it is? Because even though I'm excited about this counselling course, it's still there's a fear of failure because I really want to pass it, but I'm so enjoying it, and there's going to be pain with this because I'm going to get so frustrated with it at times because I'm going to have to learn something, and it's not going to go in first time, it's not going to go in second time, it's going to take me maybe a couple of weeks to get over something. But you're right, where there's passion, there's pain, 100%. And, just going back to Dorian Yates, very interesting guy, Dorian Yates. If you like podcasts, the Joe Rogan one with Dorian Yates is very, very interesting. I know you're a big fan of this one, but listen to Joe Rogan. But yeah, Dorian, and he's very spiritual as well now. Even though he's finished his bodybuilding, he's spiritual, he's into his yoga. Says some really good stuff, regarding his life values and his training philosophies, and just a very interesting guy, Dorian Yates.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love it. And that's the thing. Before, I'd never read a book. I won't listen to podcasts. Won't do all that. And now it's information. It's listening to people. It's taking an interest. I'm loving it.
Do you know what? I'm driving down to Peterborough tomorrow because I'm working, and but going back to this counselling course, I'm looking. It's a 3-hour drive, and it's that's about 4 YouTube videos I can watch on way down. On the counselling and stuff. So
you cannot watch, Woody. You cannot watch YouTube videos while you're driving.
I don't actually watch them. I listen to them in the headphones. I don't watch them. I don't. Honestly. If there's a big smash on M6 tomorrow morning, But Keith, thanks for coming on, mate. It's been a pleasure. It's been a good hour and 40 that, and it's been interesting, and it's good to see, like I said, that you've opened up and you share your story and you said where you've been, because no doubt people will listen to it and get a lot of value from it.
Outstanding. You've got some you guys got some editing to do on this one, haven't you?
No, there's no editing on this one. This is going straight out, this one.
Outstanding. Thanks for having me. Gonna say, you went from penthouse to shithouse, didn't you? You had JP not long ago, and then you've come down to me, haven't you?
No, mate, I'm not just saying it. This has been the best one I've done because it's been very intimate, and you can just see your honesty. You know what I mean? So that's what I like being involved in. I've enjoyed it, and like I say, I've enjoyed it when I look at my clock and it's 20 to 10, and it's been an hour and 40. So thanks very much, mate. Appreciated.
Outstanding. Cheers, brother.
Cheers, pal.